Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and I am joined today by Mr. Matt Bartek. He is the North American commercial lead for innovative seed solutions, and I'm excited because we're talking about sorghum today. So get ready for that. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to get into this, but you get the same opening question first that everybody gets. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
Man, when I look at intentional, I always try to look at the end goal
Mm,
rather than starting down the path of doing something. Understand why you're doing it first, and then, set the plan of how to get to that goal. A lot of times I think if you start down a path of, developing a product, developing a market, whatever it is, developing an employee, if you don't have the end goal in mind, you can't develop that project plan or that employee plan or that career path. So understanding what the end goal is before you start developing that plan, and then, making sure that you can adjust that plan. So being intentional to me is approaching things with purpose,
mm,
approaching it with
mm.
intention, and
Yeah.
making sure that, because if you don't understand what your end goal is, it's going to be extremely hard or impossible to get there if you're just kind of feeling your way through it. So I always say start at the end first and
Hmm.
then develop the plan to meet that goal.
Yeah, I love it. That was Covey's first habit, right? Begin with the
There you
end
go.
in mind. And it's really, I don't think there's anything much more intentional than that. It is when it comes to career pathing or figuring out where you want to go, in this life, in your marriage, in your
Yeah,
relationship at work. Like, where do we, what is it that
absolutely.
we're collectively trying to curate here? And let's start with that and then work the problem backwards. So let's
Well,
be purposeful. I love it, man. Talk to me a little bit about Innovative Seed. Who are you guys? What do you do?
So innovative, we're a genetic supply company. So we develop hybrids. We don't have a brand. So our customers, and this is the way I always have thought about innovative is, our customers are the farmers. And if we start, when we develop a hybrid or a product or, working on a disease trait, if we keep the farmers in mind first, that's our primary goal. How is it going to help their farm? What will it do to help make their lives better, make their lives easier, provide more profit on their farm? And if, again, back to your intention, if we always start with that first and then we worry about the
Mhm.
customer, and then we worry about the product process, if you take care of that farmer first and make sure that what you bring out, if you worry about that first, everything else takes care of itself. So, but we don't have a brand, like I said. We're a genetic supplier to the industry and making sure that, the farmer's the first one taken care of, and all of the products. And we only work in grain sorghum. That's the only product we work in. But making sure we're hitting those needs of farmers. Western Kansas, Eastern Colorado, Nebraska. I mean, those guys have different maturities as opposed to the upper coast of Texas or the coastal bend where we have more diseases, different
Mhm.
soil types down in the Rio Grande Valley towards Mexico. We operate in Brazil as well. So making sure that all of those bases are covered when we start on the process of developing a product, to make sure that the growers
Wow.
in need is in mind, and making sure that when they plant ISS genetics, regardless of the brand it's in, that it's going to be what's providing them the most return on their investment for purchasing that seed.
So cool. You don't realize the level of intention that goes into curating that number,
Yep.
that seed number that
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
on that bag, right? I mean, or on those units. It's pretty wild to think like, and you're beginning effectively with that end in mind, like you said, and then working that problem backwards.
Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. What about you? How did you land in this role, North American commercial lead? So you're out there. I mean, you guys are 100% in sorghum, right? So, but
Yeah.
and you're providing the genetics, but you're still working at the farm gate.
And we operate on the farm gate. So, in terms of, helping farmers understand, I get a lot of calls from growers every year. But, my background is, I know you said this was a 30-minute podcast, so I apologize. I like to ramble. Everybody always tells me,
You go for it.
you
You
know,
go for it.
home it down. So, no, I started out, I was working in, I was a groundskeeper actually working in turf grass. And then
Okay.
I took a plant breeding class close to the end of my college career. And my roommate at the time was in cotton breeding. And I really liked genetics and plant breeding and population genetics, and stumbled upon a professor that took a risk on me. And man, I've been in sorghum ever since 2007. Came through grad school, came out of school as a breeder, worked for a private
Mhm.
sector company as a private company up in Lubbock for a couple years. And then my wife and I started our own crop research company down in South
Wow.
Texas. And we're providing small crop research to mom and pop companies, smaller regional companies where we could plant small plot research, take the data, return it. We did business development, seed brokerage, and we did all of it. So my
Hmm.
wife was very integral into that. She's her background's in business, so she kind of ran the day to day operations, and I did more of the business and field work side of it. And then this role opened up in Innovative, and they were working with our company, and I fell into this role and kind of transitioned more over to the commercial side, but understanding, having that background of understanding what it means to develop a product, the process of developing the product, working with farmers, understanding what they go through on a day-to-day basis has been a huge important part of what I do. So understanding
Wow.
not just working from the product development, but you plant the seed in the ground, there's no guarantee it's going to come up. And understanding, I mean, I had trials out there a lot of times that, you plant those research trials and you're just praying for rain, just like they are.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
uh, I definitely have a soft spot for the growers and understanding of what they go through on a day-to-day basis, but then moving to the commercial side and learning the supply chain and the production and things like that. So understanding how the whole industry works has been uh, a very important part in my career, and trying to carry that forward within ISS is with our employees, and trying to help them understand that you have one function and within the company, but making sure that you understand how everything pieces together across the entire supply chain, from the original pollination all the way through
Hmm.
parent seed development, hybrid production, all the way up through what the seed that goes into the bag. You're a part of that, and
Yeah.
so having worked across those, I think has helped me fully understand and have a passion for what I do within the industry. And then working closely with our industry organizations like the National Sorghum Producers and
Yeah.
U.S. Sorghum Checkoff and the Grains Council to communicate with those growers to figure out what their needs are.
Well, you're obviously right in it and in the right role. So, you mentioned something there. I just want to tap back on really quick. So, what does it look like for you to bring everybody up to speed, so to speak? On like on maybe they don't have that lived experience. They haven't been in
Yeah,
sorghum for 20 years like you do, right?
yeah.
Or like you have. So, but like within your team, like how do you kind of get them in touch with all the different aspects to help them make those connections?
Well, I mean, and it kind of carries maybe into another part that we'll discuss a little bit later. But it's about building that culture of understanding that you're not just a cog in the wheel. You're not just punching a clock. You're an integral part. And communicating to our employees, you're an integral part of everything we do from start to finish. And then, we've started something a few years ago where, like I said, we have a research station in Brazil, two in Mexico, two in the United States. But what we've done is we want our program and we want the people within our company to understand the different levels and different operations within the company.
Mm.
So, we'll bring
Mhm.
people up from Brazil to work at our Bishop, Texas station, or we'll bring people from Mexico to work in our Mount Hope, Kansas station, and vice versa. We're sending people down to Brazil, and it creates an exchange of ideas. Maybe they can pick something up from another station they've worked on, but also not only if you're in the breeding nursery in Brazil and you come up here, you're not only looking at the breeding nursery and Bishop, you're looking at the guys that plant research, the research trials, the hybrid yield trials, but also working with the guys in supply chain. I have a lot of the team coming on, inviting them to the field trials that we do in the customer tours.
Sure.
So understanding, you may be out there putting pollination bags on, but if you come on a customer tour, then this is what you're seeing. This is the fruit of your labor. So it kind of
Mhm.
gets that buy-in all the way up the chain, but it allows the team to, and it's not, it looks like an expense. We're bringing people up from Brazil, we're bringing people from Mexico, we're sending them down there, but it's not an expense. It's an investment in your employees
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure that they have that cultural buy-in to what you're doing across your entire company.
I love it. And I love how you frame it up as an investment and not an expense. It's very easy to start looking at these investments as expenses because maybe they're not tied to something that's on a balance sheet in terms
Yep.
of physical inventory.
Yeah.
Right. Or
It's an
dollars.
investment in your culture.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important because it greases the skids for everything else. Big
Yep.
time. I love it. Um, why sorghum?
It's, and it's so I
Of all the things
remember
you could have done with your career in this industry or any other, like why sorghum?
it's just something that gets into your blood. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's just it's a crop you find a passion for. It's considered a specialty crop. Like I said, I
Uh-huh.
mean, we're sitting at 7 to 7.2 million acres, versus, you look at corn and soy, they're 92, 94 million acres. But what I really love about sorghum is, regardless of the companies or the organizations, I mean, it's a community, it's not a crop. And so, like, when you
Mhm.
show these organizations like, the Grains Council, or, we'll go to breeding nurseries down in, winter breeding nurseries, everybody shows up at the same time to work their nurseries, and we all know each other. I mean, you can be a competitor, but it's still a community, and you share ideas across different companies about, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you, what are you looking at,
Mhm.
how are things going? But it doesn't feel like you're working in a it doesn't feel like you're working in a big machine. You are truly working within a community of people that care about the crop. And I think that's been one of the big things that's created my passion for sorghum. And then, there was this sign, where we used to have this little building out next to our breeding nurseries in College Station. And there was a sign that said, sorghum breeders never retire, they just head out. And that's kind of been it's hard to get out of sorghum once you're in it, because there's just something about that community that just keeps you tied to it.
Sure. It's super interesting to me. I don't know what my affinity is. I have no reason. I'm not in
Exactly.
production in any way, shape, or form. But as I was telling you off the mic, a few years ago, I decided my body was giving me a lot of feedback when I would eat certain things. And so I just, I eliminated anything that was wheat based, and suddenly it corrected itself and
You know,
it feels massively better. And so I'm just, well, I don't know what it is. I've never done any testing, but
yeah,
I can test on myself and know that I feel better. But then you experiment with other things and you reintroduce foods and so forth. And sorghum has. And when I eat something that's a sorghum flour based, whether we make a pizza crust with it or make cookies with it or
yeah,
anything like that, doesn't phase me whatsoever. So that was kind of it. And I've since quit drinking, but the sorghum-based beers are a pretty damn good replacement for a
yeah,
wheat-based beer, and, would love to see more experimentation with those kinds of things, right? Especially if you can
yeah.
make me a nice non-alcoholic one now, but,
When
um,
when you look at sorghum, it kind of
yeah.
checks all the boxes, and
Yeah,
I would almost consider it the perfect crop. I mean, you can feed it
yeah,
as a whole grain, you can turn it into flour, you can turn it into ethanol, you can turn it into alcohol,
yep,
beer, pasta, chips, whatever you want to turn sorghum into, you can. And then there's also a whole other branch on the forage sorghums that are really great for cattle feed in areas where heavy cattle
mhm,
production. It's more efficient. With the nutrient use efficiency, the water efficiency, it fits areas that are maybe going through some water transition or some water
mhm,
shortages. So it kind of checks all the boxes in terms of in my opinion, it checks all the boxes in terms of a very sustainable crop that we
yeah,
can rely on and farmers can rely on, to be profitable on their farm. But at the same time, there's just not a whole lot you can't do with sorghum. So,
mhm.
yeah, and there's just many opportunities from the different things you can do with the exact same crop.
Yeah, it's been melting my mind just a little bit, wondering like why don't we grow more of it and find more domestic uses for it in addition to the export uses that are out there. What what is it about sorghum that makes it so nutrient efficient and water efficient? Is the root structure like what is the
One of the things that contributes to that is sorghum's a perennial crop that we cultivate as an annual. So when you look at our
oh,
other grass crops that we cultivate, like corn's an annual. Sorghum is a true perennial. So I mean, there was a time, where we would plant sorghum in South Texas. The farmers would cut the initial crop, hit it with a quick, dose of fertilizer, and then cut the ratoon crop. So they would plant once, cut twice, and there was a great
interesting.
reduction in yield. But there's really no added, investment on the grower side. But yeah, I think the perenniality of sorghum is really what contributes to a lot of its resiliency in the environments.
Wow, very interesting. I did not know that. I'm learning so much today. It's very exciting. Little ag ed, little ag ed class from Mark today on all the stuff about sorghum and the domestic. So and one of the biggest export reasons is we send it to China and they make booze out of it. Baiju, is that what it's called?
Baijiu, yeah, they
Yeah,
create baijiu, and they have a lot of poultry and a lot of poultry feeding, duck feeding, swine feeding. It
yeah,
can go, Mexico uses a lot for cattle feeding and poultry feeding as well.
yeah,
But that's again, it just when you look at all the end uses of the coarse grain as a whole, I mean, it adds to the diversity of the crop itself,
yeah,
and looking at expanding those markets, we're looking at going into Southeast Asia for catfish feeding and aquaculture, pet food. So when we look at the glycemic index of it, there's a lot of good studies out there. Zach Simon he works with the U.S. sorghum checkoff out of Kansas. I mean, he's real big into
mm,
the pet food, talking about the health benefits to your pets, especially for pets that struggling with weight problems, things like that. Just the glycemic reaction, the glycemic index of sorghum, just
okay,
the whole pet food side of it. I mean, there's just not a lot of things it won't do, and it's just a phenomenal crop. I mean, pop sorghum is the one we all think of. Pops like popcorn, but there's so many other food applications, not only from humans to pets to, like I said, ethanol. And it's the same ethanol profile as what we produce other ethanol out of,
yeah.
whether it be sugar cane or or corn. But again, it's producing good ethanol on marginal ground. So really opens up our opportunities for expanded markets there, both domestically and internationally as well.
So wild. I've had the sorghum popcorn. It's really good,
Yep.
and it doesn't hurt my stomach the way that traditional popcorn does.
Yeah.
Unless you put all the crap on it, then it's just then
All
there's
the
nothing
stuff
to
that
do
makes
with
it
the
taste
kernel.
good.
There's nothing to do with the kernel, but just salted and buttered
Yeah.
with is very, very good. What's the protein like?
The protein actually, so the protein in sorghum is actually slightly higher than corn. So when you
Okay.
look at the feeding value of corn versus sorghum, sorghum's on parity with it, but
Wow.
sorghum has a higher digestible protein. The feeding value is 1 to 1. So the protein is really good. It's within 2 to 3%, if I remember off the top of my head correctly. But protein levels are very good on
Mhm.
sorghum, and
Cool.
especially in the DDGs as well. So the DDGs
Yeah.
following ethanol fit all the nutrient profiles of everything that a feeder would be looking for afterwards.
Mhm. Yeah. Do we make any claims that it's better for the soil?
That's so my background's in genetics, so I'm not going to get into agronomy claims. So
Has
I'm sure
anybody
I
made
wouldn't
any
be getting
claims
those
that
phone
it's
calls
better
and
for
those
the soil?
emails. But when you look at better for the soil, I mean, I think a lot of that goes with planting and farming practices as well.
Sure.
Uh, there's some areas where you just can't no-till.
Mhm.
But the stalks, you're not taking the whole stalk, you're taking the top of the plants. You are leaving a lot of vegetation out in the field.
Yeah.
I know a lot of growers in up in the high plains, that Texas Panhandle, Kansas, Nebraska. They'll cut the stalk, they'll cut the head off the top of the grain, or the grain off the top of the stalk, and then leave those stalks out there. And a lot of
Mhm.
times when they get snow, that snow blows across the field and ends up in their ditch. But if they're allowed to leave that stubble out there, that stubble holds the snow and it provides a
Mhm.
good moisture profile as that snow starts to melt. So,
Huh.
as far as the claims of improving the soil. I mean, anytime you leave, regardless of the crop, anytime you leave vegetation out there, I don't think it's going to hurt your soil.
Yeah, of course. No, it's always good. It's good. Makes that much makes sense. Okay, guys, we're learning sorghum today, and I appreciate your passion too. Right, I mean, there's so much intention in your voice and your answers. Obviously you
Thank
spent
you.
2 decades of your career just working in this one crop, and so obviously you've got to be if you've stuck it out that long, especially in some of the environments that you're working in down there in Texas. I imagine it gets a little hot when you're out there checking
Yeah.
your plots. so, uh, so here's a non sorghum question for you. Working with your wife. So I don't know if you in your current role, do you guys still work together, or is that the business you guys had prior to this?
That was the business we had prior to it. So my wife got her PhD in business. So she was very who could you ask better to run your business than somebody with that type of background? So she
Sure.
came out of oil and gas, and when I started on my career and we started having kids, we focused on our family, and running our business together was just a good opportunity for us to kind
Hmm.
of, focus on the family, but at the same time have an opportunity to work together. So it was a great experience for us. And then this opportunity came along and, providing her more time to focus on the kids and, two
Cool.
daughters and one teenager right now, 14 and 11. And it just, yeah. So, there's a lot of freedom within what I do now.
Mhm.
And then allowing her the opportunity to kind of pursue her own interest as well. She's an author and
Oh,
just,
nice.
yeah.
Very cool, man. I love it. I love it. What is she writing?
So she writes children's fiction, but it's science
Oh,
based. So,
okay.
yeah, she's got a few books out there. So, just allowing her to pursue her own passions, and then she knows sorghum just about as well as I do because she's been hearing about it nonstop for 18 years we've been
Yeah,
married. So,
you guys are in it
but no,
together.
she's still very engaged. She works closely with my old professor there at A&M. So we really have that. We still have that tight knit connection back to the sorghum breeding program there at A&M. And it's again, they're family to us and a lot of the folks we've known over the years. So
Yeah, yeah. When I think about Texas A&M, interestingly enough, I almost transferred to A&M my sophomore year of college. I went to the University of Minnesota, studied ag ed, and they had an ag leadership program at A&M, and I was
yeah,
big in FFA and was down there training to run for national FFA office at A&M with some of my friends from Texas, and it was very attractive. I mean, it's such an amazing school, such an incredible culture. um, we've got a young man right now who's interviewing for son-in-law status, and
I
he's
don't look forward to those days.
yeah, no, it's an interesting one. He's not an Aggie, but his dad played football in the mid '90s uh, for um, for the Aggies. A guy named Larry Wallace, who's
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, so we have this connection now to Texas, Texas A&M, and all these things, and I keep wondering if life's not trying to pull us down there in some way, shape, or form. So,
Well,
as my career progresses, we keep going further south. It seems
well,
so.
I'm an hour and a half away. If you make it down, give me a call.
Sounds good, man. All right. So what does the future hold? So I mean, Innovative Seed is the place where you hang your hat now. What do we need to innovate for the industry for further adoption of sorghum? Like, what does that get to look like going forward?
I think it's a lot of what we do. I think to grow the industry as a whole. I think it's promoting sorghum and its versatility. Expanding those
Mhm,
markets and showing the benefit not only to growers but also to the environment. I know we're running out of water in certain areas where we rely heavily on irrigation. So I think sorghum's a really good benefit for that, but
mhm,
looking at areas where, coarse grain consumption is increasing, we all need protein. We all want protein.
mhm,
But moving towards more crops that can produce that on a very sustainable level, and allow, other economies to grow as well. But work with farmers to make sure that again that their farms are sustainable. That's what I keep hearing from growers is, all growers really want to have that family farm. Most of them are on family farms, but making sure that what they're growing is going to be sustainable to carry that farm on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. But you have to have the products to do it. You have to have the soil to do it. You have to have the water to do it. But at the same time, you have to have the markets to do it as well.
mhm.
So I think that's been a big piece, and that's what I look at on a day to day basis: is how do we get them there, and that's been a big focus of ISS.
Really cool. I'm excited to see where this goes. Honestly, I think it's going to be a one of those crops that I say this on almost every show. I get into this. I find a way to bring it up because, quite frankly, I'm going to beat the drum until we figure it out. And it's really around this. Since as an industry, we're no longer the world's low cost producer for everything. Probably, certainly for some things, but not for everything. Um, and our mission certainly is still to feed the world, but by and large, we're kind of doing that, right? And the world
Yeah.
is that we have an abundance of food. Maybe one of our bigger problems in America, at least, is food distribution because we do have a lot of waste. Um, but my interest is in defining or redefining what is the North Star for agriculture in America now for the next 20 or 30 years,
Yeah.
you know? And
Well.
the creation of new markets, the creation
Yeah.
domestic, the domestic use of the things that we can grow and grow better, here. I'm very interested in that. Can we replace more corn and soybean acres with something like sorghum, which, in my personal opinion, has far more use from a nutrition standpoint and just a general productivity standpoint as well.
Yeah. And no, I think, that's exactly kind of what, the groups like the Sorghum Checkoff and National Sorghum Producers and Grains Council are doing, is looking at those expanding markets of, what is desired in these other countries that we can utilize domestically produced sorghum for. Um, and again, looking outside of just the food crops, increasing domestic consumption is always important, making sure we have that food security, but also looking at the farm security. What are we going to do with the grains we produce and the starch we produce, and finding those new end uses for it. And again, ethanol is going to be a big piece of that, in my opinion. So I think that is our North Star right now. But at the
Mhm.
same time, making sure we can have healthy, sustainable food that we can eat that provides value back to the farms without hurting the entire supply chain in terms of, having these ups and downs that we keep having, but having it more sustainable for the growers in terms of they can get into more of a balanced rotation and more predictable rotation on farm, and getting those predictable
Mhm.
ways for them to grow their farms and keep those, like I said, in the family. That's been a big part.
Yeah,
It's been a big passion of mine, is making sure that those family farms stay in the family.
love it, man. So good. So good. All right. Hey, as we start to bring it in for a landing here today, Matt, what uh, book, resource, podcast would you recommend to folks that's been of use to you over the course of your career?
About the past year, 18 months, I've really been focusing a lot on strategy.
Hmm.
Again, I completed that leadership course from the U.S. Sorghum Checkoff, which is, mostly available to farmers, but there are private sector guys that come in. But, focusing a lot on strategy. I was reading I'm sure you've heard this one quite a bit, is the Extreme Ownership, the Jocko Willink and Leif Babin
Hmm.
book. So that was
Yep.
good. But, I spent a lot of time on the road and in airports, in the truck, listening to podcasts and things. uh, but that one's good for applying real world. Nobody wants to listen to a textbook on audio,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the way that they phrase that book has been really good. But there was a podcast that I'd been listening to called Business Wars, by
Okay.
David Brown. And so I've
Interesting.
been listening to Business Wars, and it's not, it's how companies compete with each other. But what I really have pulled out more than just how companies are competitive in the market space is more of how the leadership at the top has allowed them to move into more dominant, or, uh, you know, poor leadership has caused, like, regressions in terms of how they developed as a company. So that was a podcast, but he did write a book called The Art of Business Wars, which is kind of the play on the Sun
Okay.
Tzu's, art
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the art of
The Art of
war.
War.
But
Yep.
it's mostly case studies. But when you read through the book, it's case
Oh, that's
studies.
cool.
But a big piece of it, and I don't know if this was his intention or not, but really how leadership and management and business strategy, and how you communicate those objectives to your employees has
Hmm.
really shaped a lot of these companies that we know day in and day out now. So I would definitely recommend Art of Business War.
Beautiful, man. I like it. I like it a lot. So here's what we do. We take these recommendations. The Jocko Willink book, Extreme Ownership, easily the number one most recommended book on this podcast by far. I need to start getting a commission for all the people that are downloading that book because they listen to this show.
Yeah,
um, and or maybe I can just get Jocko to bring me on his show. That'd be great too. If he happens to pick up an episode of
yeah,
the Intentional Ag Leader podcast, which I highly doubt, but you never know.
you
So if
never know.
anybody's got a connection, let me know. But what we do though is we take, so the podcast is the Business Wars, right? And then his book is
Yeah,
the Art of Business War.
the Art of Business Wars. Yeah,
Yeah, cool. So we take those and we load them into our program, which is an AI performance management system called Jericho. And what's cool about it is you just have a very simple, like, 5-minute conversation with it to get started, and then it actually writes you a playbook on how to be more intentional in your role. And so it's literally like, just you get a whole email. It's got everything in there that you need to get started, and then it gets you a free account inside Jericho on a free 30-day trial. So we're going to have those. We're going to put those books in the resource library. And so if those resources match the goals that you have or the things that you're working on, it actually it'll make those recommendations and it puts them in the email and links them up for you. So you just go click on it,
Yeah,
takes you straight to Amazon to go get it. So
that's
guys and
awesome.
gals, head over to it's askjericho.com/try. You'd have like a 3, 4, 5 minute conversation, depending how much detail you want to give it. And then you're off to the races.
Yeah,
So there's there's our for the day. Matt, it's been a pleasure, man, getting to dive in here and get to know you a little bit and learn a bunch about sorghum. Every time I get to talk to someone like you about it, I get more interested and more passionate, and I want to go acquire some ground and put some on it. So, thanks for being here.
absolutely. Reach out anytime. You have my contact. So phone's always
You got it.
open.
Cool.
All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Thanks, Mark.